Marcus Washington adjusted his perfectly pressed navy suit and approached the airline counter at Kennedy International Airport. His first-class boarding pass gleamed under the fluorescent lights, displaying Seat 2A in bold letters. The blonde attendant, Jenny Foster, looked up with a practiced smile that immediately faltered when she saw him. "Good evening. I'm checking in for Flight 247 to Chicago," Marcus said politely, sliding his ticket and identification across the marble counter. Jenny's eyes darted between his face and the documents twice, then 3 times. Her welcoming expression transformed into something colder, more suspicious. "Sir, are you certain this ticket belongs to you?" she asked, her voice sharp with doubt. Marcus felt the familiar knot forming in his stomach. "Yes, ma'am. I purchased it myself yesterday." Jenny picked up her phone, whispering urgently to someone on the other end while keeping her eyes fixed on Marcus with unmistakable hostility. At the gate, flight attendant Sarah Mills examined Marcus's boarding pass with exaggerated scrutiny. Her red lipstick formed a thin line of disapproval as she shook her head. "This doesn't look right to me," she announced loudly, attracting stares from nearby passengers. Security. Manager Jim Carter, a stocky man with green temples, marched over with 2 security guards flanking him. His chest puffed with authority as he snatched the ticket from Marcus's hand. "Sir, you need to come with us. This seat isn't yours," Carter declared, his voice echoing through the boarding area. "I assure you, there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus replied calmly, maintaining his dignity despite the growing crowd of onlookers. Carter grabbed Marcus's arm roughly. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Passengers gasped as they watched the well-dressed black man being dragged away from the first-class line. Some pulled out their phones, recording the shameful scene. A young mother covered her child's eyes, while an elderly businessman shook his head in disgust. From the first-class boarding line, Helen Brooks, an elegant woman in her 70s with silver hair and kind eyes, stepped forward. Her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "Excuse me, young man," she called out to Carter, her cane tapping against the floor as she approached. "I believe you're making a terrible mistake." Carter turned, irritation flashing across his face. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. This doesn't concern you." Helen's eyes twinkled with knowledge as she glanced at Marcus. "Oh, but it does. This gentleman saved my husband's life just 6 months ago. He's quite distinguished in his field." She paused meaningfully, letting her words hang in the air without revealing more. "Some people," Helen continued, her voice carrying across the terminal, "are exactly where they belong, regardless of what others might assume." Marcus met her gaze gratefully, recognizing an ally in unexpected places. 30 minutes into Flight 247, the aircraft suddenly shuddered violently. Oxygen masks dropped as passengers screamed in terror. But the real crisis began when a man in seat CRC clutched his chest, gasping for air. "Medical emergency! Medical emergency!" Sarah Mills shouted over the intercom, her earlier confidence completely shattered. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a passenger experiencing what appears to be a massive heart attack. Is there a doctor on board? We need immediate medical assistance." Marcus, seated in economy after his humiliation, unbuckled his seatbelt without hesitation. He pushed past the flight attendants who had treated him so poorly just hours before. "MDR, Marcus Washington, Chief of Cardiac Surgery at Chicago Memorial Hospital," he announced firmly, rolling up his sleeves. Sarah Mills's face went pale as recognition dawned. Jim Carter, who had rushed from first class, froze in complete shock. "Clear the aisle," Marcus commanded with professional authority. "This man's life depends on the next few minutes." Marcus knelt beside the unconscious passenger, his trained hands immediately checking for a pulse. His heart has stopped. "I need the emergency medical kit, now," he barked with surgical precision, Sarah Mills scrambled to retrieve the defibrillator, her hands trembling as she handed it to the man she had so cruelly dismissed hours earlier. Marcus worked methodically, administering CPR with expert technique. "Clear!" he shouted, applying the defibrillator pedals. The passenger's body jolted. "Nothing." Again. The second shock brought a weak but steady heartbeat. Marcus continued chest compressions, monitoring the man's vital signs with laser focus. After 20 grueling minutes, the passenger's breathing stabilized. "He'll live," Marcus announced, wiping sweat from his forehead. The cabin erupted in applause. Helen Brooks stood up, her voice ringing clear. "This is the doctor you threw out of first class." Passengers gasped in outrage. "Disgraceful!" someone shouted. "Sue them!" yelled another. Jim Carter's face crumpled with shame. Sarah Mills stared at her feet, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "You judged this hero by his skin color," Helen declared loudly, "and nearly cost a man his life because of your prejudice." As Flight 247 touched down at Chicago O'Hare, news crews crowded the terminal gates. Videos of Marcus's mistreatment had gone viral during the flight, sparking nationwide outrage. Airline CEO Patricia Reynolds waited nervously as passengers disembarked, her legal team flanking her sides. Reporters shouted questions about the discrimination scandal that was already trending across social media platforms. Marcus emerged with quiet dignity, his medical bag in hand. Microphones thrust toward him as cameras flashed rapidly. "Dr. Washington, how do you respond to this treatment?" a reporter called out. Marcus paused thoughtfully, his voice steady and measured. "I hope this incident reminds everyone that we cannot judge people by appearances. Today, prejudice nearly cost a man his life." Patricia Reynolds stepped forward, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Dr. Washington, on behalf of the entire airline, I offer our deepest apologies." Behind him, Helen Brooks smiled proudly as justice finally prevailed. The hero had reasoned about hatred, proving that dignity and professionalism always triumph over ignorance and discrimination.